Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this video lesson. Today we are going to learn about structures. You know what an array is? An array is a collection. A structure is also a collection. Here's the downside of an array. An array can only collect the similar type of data. You can only collect a bunch of integers, or a bunch of doubles, or a bunch of strings, but you can't collect a combination of those. A structure is what allows you to contain a bunch of different data types into one particular item. Now, I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now because you haven't seen how it works. So let's develop a product, an app that shows you the usage of structures. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. And of course, this is going to be a C# program. So C#, we're going to create a Windows form application. And we're going to title this C#. And I'll say structures and intro. This is an introduction to structures. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop a button, a label, and a text box, just to create a very simple app of how to use this. So let me open up the toolbox. Let me open up Common Controls. I'll tap button, label, and also text box into here. So I'm finished with this guy. And now let me go ahead and open up the Properties panel. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select these three items, and I'm going to change the font size to 12 points. So over here, 12 points. Press enter, good. And now what I'll do is I'll take this label, I'll move it to the upper left-hand corner like this, and I'm going to have first name, last name, month, day, year, GPA for students. Say for example, I want to keep track of students' data. So last name takes up the most space. So I think what I'll do is I'll take last name and type that in over here in the text property. Say last name. And I want to do something that I haven't done in previous video lectures. Whenever I create something like this, I usually leave it as auto-sized true, but this time I want to change this to auto-sized false. The reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to make sure that this thing is going to be right aligned. So you see that that's a little bit bigger than necessary over here. Some extra space. I'm just simply going to go over here to text align, and instead of top left, I'm going to make this guy top right. So see how everything is aligned over here on the right-hand side? I'll have it just like that. I guess it doesn't have to be so tall. Make that a little bit smaller, that's fine. So I'm going to ask the person to enter their name. Let me go ahead and move a text box over here. See that magenta underline that goes across to the label? And then I'm going to open this up a little bit to give the user the opportunity to enter their last name. Now let me go ahead and take this label, copy and paste it, and I'm going to move it over here. And that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll open it up just a little bit more here. For this guy over here, I want that to be center aligned, so I'll just go over here to top center, say for example. That looks fine. And I'm also going to make this so that it has a background style of fixed 3D. Okay. So you see what it looks like? It's just like a three-dimensional rendering of that label. I don't want any text in there, so I'll go to the text property, get rid of that. So all I have is a label, a text box, and then a label so that when I click that button, if I typed in the word Solis, when I click that button, then Solis is going to be displayed on this label. What I'll do is I'll take these three and copy and paste. And I'll paste again, because I'm going to have first name, last name. I'm going to have the birth month, day, and year. So that'll be birth month, birth day, and this one will be the birth year. And then finally the GPA. So something like that. And then what I'm going to do is change all these labels over here. So instead of having that as last name, that's going to be first name. And last name, I'll keep that the same for this guy over here. We'll say month, because I'm interested in their birth month, birth day, birth year, and GPA. Okay. So now I want the user to be able to submit their entry. Over here, put this button over here, and instead of button, we'll just say submit. Let me go ahead and close or reduce the size of this form to something like this. I don't want the maximize box. I don't want the minimize box. Instead of form 1, we'll say this is the structures intro. You'll notice that the user is going to be entering a string, an integer, integer. And GPA typically is 3-point this, 2-point that, 4-point this. So that's going to be a double. Do you see the multiple data types? String, integer, integer, double. And I'm going to take all that data and put it into a specific student. Say, for example, student number 1, calculus student, physics student, biology student, or whatever type of student. A student is going to be what? A student is going to have a first name member, a last name member, a month, day, year, GPA member, and it's going to have different data types. That is how we use structures. All right. Well, before I continue, I better go ahead and give names to the various items. So let's go ahead and give, like say, for example, this text box. We're going to give that txt first name. And this will be LBL, first name. Question? TXT, last name. And this one will be TXT, or LBL, I should say, last name. This will be TXT month. I could put birth month, or just month, whatever you want. And this will be LBL month. TXT day, LBL day. TXT year, LBL year. And finally, TXT GPA, and then this will be the label, GPA. And then I have the button down here, BTN submit. Let me save my work by clicking Save All. All right, so let me just double check, make sure that I've got all of the names. Now, of course, I didn't give these guys names right here because those labels will not change programmatically. These labels are going to stay the same. So this one says label 8, this one says label 6. That's fine, it already has a name. I just don't want to give it an LBL name like these guys over here. This really does represent the first name. This really does represent the person's last name because the idea is the user will type in the data here. They will click submit, and all the data that is over here will transfer to the labels. But we're going to use a structure to see that happen. Okay, so let's see here: LBL month, LBL day, LBL year, LBL GPA. Good. Let me check the text boxes. My eyes are over here. TXT last name, first name, month, day, year, and GPA. Looks good. So I'll save my work. And now I can go ahead and double click on the button so it takes me into the code area. So I'll double click on the button, it takes me into the code area. I don't need the properties panel anymore. And what I want you to do, so first of all, let's go ahead and create a structure. Now, this structure, I want this to be visible by every single function that I have here. So what I'll do is I'll put the cursor right here, hit enter a couple of times. Do you see that I'm outside of any particular function, but I'm still inside the class? So here's the beginning of the curly braces, here's the ending of the curly braces. I'm inside the class, but I'm not inside this BTN submit click. I'm not inside of this form 1. I'm right here outside of any of those. And I'm going to type in the word struct, tab. All right, so that's Visual Studio's way of creating like a snippet of code for you. This is a structure. That's what struct stands for. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the student structure. Now, what is a student? Well, a student is someone who has a first name. A student also has a last name. A student also has a birth month. And that is going to be represented as a whole number, an integer. A student also has a birthday, also a birth year. All those are going to be represented as integers. And then finally, a student also has a GPA. And we're going to represent that as a double. So these are the members of students. So when you say, what is a student? Well, at least in accordance with this code, a student has the following properties. First name, last name, month, day, year, GPA. Now, could I put a bunch of other items like address, city, state, zip, cell phone number, home phone number, date of entrance into the school, major, courses already taken? Yeah, I could, all that stuff I could list here. This is just an example. That a student is this. These are the members of the student. Notice how you have to type in the word public. You are making this accessible. Now, that must mean that private means something different, and public means something different. So we're going to get more into that into the CS225 class. Right now, just know that you have to type in public, what is the data type, and what is the name of the variable. And you have a collection of variables that make up a structure. All right, so now over here, when I click this button over here, it takes me to this code area. So I'm going to have you click over here in the btn_click event. And let's go ahead and say declarations. Get user input. I'm not really going to have a calculation in this particular example. I'm going to have an output. Okay, are you ready to declare a student? Watch this. Are you ready to declare a student called Robert? What is Robert? Robert is a student. What is a student? A student has a first name, last name, month, day, year, GPA. Okay, watch me create another student. Ready? What is Kristen? Kristen is a student. Now, I'm going to type something and then I'm going to erase it. What is age? Age is an integer. So we're abiding by the same way that we have declared variables in the past. What is this? You just simply look to the left. It's an integer. What is this? A student. What is this? A student. So the same way that you've declared these primitive data types, it's exactly how you should think about in terms of creating structures. What is Jackson? Jackson is a student. Joshua is a student. Are you already seeing the downside of structures? What do I have to do to create students? I have to individually type them all like this. So this is the downside so far. So if I have 100 students, right now, I'd have to type 100 of these. Student Sally, student Billy, student Tom, student Jennifer, so forth and so on. Who wants to do that? Wait a minute. We have something that can be a collection, we have an array. Is it possible to have an array of structures? Yes. And that's what we're going to talk about next time. So I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this individual creation of students. What I can do is within a for loop, create an array of students and say that student number 1 is Robert, student number 2 is Kristen, student number 3 is Jackson, so forth and so on. But I'm just typing this here right now to give you the concept. Okay? All right. So, what is Robert? Robert's this, a student. And these are the members that Robert has. So now over here where it says get user input, I'm going to do this. Robert dot, wow, look at that. Look at all those members. And Robert's first name, is there a first name right here? Yep, there it is. Double click. What is Robert's first name? Oh, I'm going to get that from txt firstname.text. Isn't that correct? Get the data that was typed in here and put it into the first name member of Robert. Does Robert have a last name? dot LA. Yep, there it is. Last name. And where is that data going to come from? Well, that's going to come from txt last name dot text. In other words, this text box. We're going to get that text and put it into the last name property of Robert. Okay, let me trick you a little bit. Robert dot birth month. Okay, so birth month, notice over here, that is an integer. So I can't do this. Month. Can't do this because that's a string. So what I have to do is this. Convert dot to int 32. Then I can go ahead and get it in month. Make sense? Take a string, convert it into a number, and put it into the number property or the number member of Robert. We'll do the same thing for birthday and birth year. So we'll say Robert.birthday, convert dot to int 32, txt day dot text. We'll do the same thing for year. Birth year, convert dot to int 32, txt year dot text. Okay. Finally, there's one more property that we have to consider, and that's the student's GPA. So what is Robert's GPA? Well, that's stored over here in this text box. So what we'll do is we'll say Robert dot, let me see, is there a GPA? Up there it is. And see the word double right there? So I'm going to have to convert to double whatever is inside of the text box, txt GPA. So what are these guys called? Members. These are the members of Robert. What is Robert? Robert is a student. Well, now that I have this, let's go ahead and put all the data into these labels over here. Okay, so over here, LBL, oh, I love the Hungarian notation system, because all I got to do is type in LBL and look for what I'm trying to display, which in this case is this label, select.text. And what am I going to put into there? Whatever Robert dot, whatever the first name of Robert is, which as you can see here, this thing is going to return a string. So there's no need for me to convert to a string because it's already a string. So I can just do this. I'm going to do the same thing for last name. LBL last name dot text box, or text rather. What are we going to put in there? Well, whatever Robert's last name is, dot LAS. Yep, there it is. And look what last name is. It's a string. So we're going to put that into here. How about Robert's birth month? Here it is, birth month. Now, check this out. This is returning an integer. I'm trying to put an integer into a string. I can't do that. So what I'll do is over here, I'll just say convert to string, and then I'll say Robert dot. So let me erase this dot, and then birth month. So take this integer, see, integer down here, convert it into a string, put it into the text property of this label. Let's do the same thing for LBL day. So again, convert dot to string, Robert dot birthday, LBL year. We're going to convert to string, Robert dot year, birth year. And then finally, Robert's GPA. So LBL GPA dot text. We're going to convert now. Remember, this is a double, so we'll have to say actually, it doesn't matter. We're still using toString. Robert dot GPA, as you can see here, is a double, and we're just going to take that double, convert it to a string. So we're done. This is just a very, very simple application to give you an understanding of what a structure is. So I remember one time when I was working at Hughes, this one guy was joking around with me. He says, I am the product of all my decisions. Who am I? I am the product of all my decisions. In other words, all the good and bad decisions, that's who this person is. That's what a structure is. A structure is a collection. And it's a collection that can have multiple data types. So it's an improvement upon an array, which can only have a collection of similar data types. Now, the downside, I shouldn't say downside, but the limitation of a structure is that you would have to create each one individually. I'm sorry, right here. Each structure individually. Next time, I'll show you how we can create an array of structures. Okay. All right, so now let's run the code, see what happens. So let me move this over here, and I'll say Bill, oh, how about this? Faye, King, get it? Baking. All right, birth month was born, let me see here, on January 1st, 2017, GPA, very good student, 4.0. Submit, Faye, King, 1/1/2017, 4. Now it's displaying this as an integer, so I can change that, give it a fixed width of, or make it a fixed number with one number after the decimal point. I'm also noticing that I'm cutting off the label a little bit. I should have increased the size of the label, but I'll leave that for you later. But that's bothering me here. It shouldn't bother me. Let's see here. Fix that problem. So what I could do over here is, instead of doing this, I'll just comment this out and give you version 2. lblgpa.text is going to be, all right, so what I want to do is I want to take Robert's GPA. I want to convert that to a string, specifically with a fixed width of one number after the decimal point. And see what that does. So, Faye, King, 1/1/2017, 4.0. There we go. Pretty good. So all we're doing is we are simply putting all the data that was entered by the user into a structure. A structure has members. In this case, Robert is a student. Robert has the members first name, last name, birth, month, day, year, GPA. We are originally taking all these text properties from this text box and putting them into the members of Robert. And then into the labels over here, that's this section of code, I am taking each of the different members of Robert and putting them into the label, showing you how to obtain and how to display the data. And that's it. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.